Because I know when we talked on the phone, you were saying that black people and Jewish people like have been arm in arm for like ages and ages, and you even made me do some looking up. You told me to look at that Martin Luther King picture on his "I Have a Dream" speech, where it was a Jewish guy next to him, and I'm like, okay, so if this was, because that was 1968, and we're 2020, where did, I guess, the disconnect come in, or what happened? Because I always feel like black people as a whole, that I feel like we're sometimes just isolated from any other culture, any other race, and I feel like we're on this fight alone, and it doesn't feel like we have a bunch of allies. I'm telling you, not until just recently with this whole George Floyd thing, then I feel like some people are now considered allies, and they see like, yo, black people have been like tortured in this country, and it feels like nobody really has our back, or nobody really comes to our aid, or when we publicly say something that we have a problem with, then I feel like a lot of other people in their movement, they jump on and like, oh yeah, but we've been tortured too, and we've been bad, and I'm like, and I started following this one Jewish guy on Facebook, and he was like, this is not the oppressed Olympics. Everybody has oppression, everybody has been oppressed, but this is not the oppressed Olympics, and you don't get an award for being oppressed. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to feel equal. Everybody wants to feel like they belong here. They don't want to feel, nobody likes hate, right? Nobody likes it. Some people, they do it, but nobody likes hate. And I'm just like, how can we get back to that where we are arm in arm with the Jewish community? How can we get back to that point?
That's a really, really good question. I would say it's probably over my pay grade, because you would have to really look at a lot of the socioeconomics and really dive into almost like the decades and the days, the months, the years since that time. So I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I would have to say, just from my personal, small readings that I've done and research, I think where it really went is as there was this kind of, I don't know if you want to call it some type of move to the suburbs or things like that, and the desegregation, if you will, and causing people on their own to do that, kind of put communities in isolation on their own. And when people who used to live together don't live together anymore, the influences on each other start to move away. So you will actually see, there are still some places where there are, a good integration. Listen, I grew up in California, and I grew up in Southern California in Los Angeles, and we had plenty of all kinds of different races, creeds, etc. on the same street. In the cul-de-sac that I grew up in, we had a Chinese, we had an Indian, we had a nice American couple, and we had ourselves.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's great to have that, and it helps. But when you have as a whole where people are just kind of moving off to their own, and then when you're on your own, you're just thinking about as normal because that's what's around you, I think that's where things start to get separated, where people start having that division. And, I would love for you to tell me more about that from your side, or from the black community side, where staying inner city and things starting to crumble and really taking a turn for the worse. Where did that come from? That's one thing I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
I just want to say one of the other points that you touched on, which is, this oppression Olympics, there's two things that come to mind when I hear that. First of all, the Jews can always claim this has happened to us because for thousands of years, anything and everything has been done, between being put into a ghetto, taxed, gassed, murdered, Inquisition, pogroms, you name it, it's been done to the Jewish people at some point. So they're not looking for the award. In fact, for the most part, they don't want to even raise kind of like a flag like, yes, this is us. It's just part of our culture, and what we take from that is truth hurts sometimes, and when you stand for the truth, there's going to be people who are against it, but you got to stay the course, and you got to stay no matter what. And from a lot of darkness, a lot of times that's where the light will shine brightest, and from those terrible moments there has been tremendous growth. So you're right. The Oppression Olympics is it's ridiculous. You know, everybody needs to look at what's happening and see how they can help that person. That person isn't calling out because they want you to say, oh, that's happened to me too. No, they're calling out for help. So see how you can help the other person.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to think about, especially in today's climate where you have that happening a lot, and this is being brought up a lot in social media and in the news, is what are we taking from it? You know, how are we going about this to help the people who are calling out in pain?